Today we are going to talk about Buddhism in Hong Kong. The reason for us to talk about Buddhism in Hong Kong is that from outside we see Buddhism in Hong Kong is emergent in a new way, in a different way. Today, to talk about Buddhism in Hong Kong, we have here with us Venerable Professor Kuala Lumpur Dhammajoti, who was a professor some years ago in the Postgraduate Institute of Pali and Buddhist Studies, Sri Lanka, and later on who again became a reputed professor in the Center of Buddhist Studies in the University of Hong Kong, and currently the director of an institution called Buddha Dharma Center in Hong Kong. He is the most suitable person who has the first-hand experience about the Buddhism in Hong Kong. So, Venerable Professor, we cordially welcome you, and I would first of all like to know from you the nature of Buddhism in Hong Kong, the current situation of Buddhism in Hong Kong. How would you like to describe?
Well, officially, the government states that, or the government statistics provide information that the majority of the people in Hong Kong are Buddhist.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think, at least in terms of percentage, it's about 60%.
60%.
Yeah. And of course, they are basic lower Chinese. But in recent years, there are a significant number of Buddhists from the Southeast Asian country or the South Asian countries,
Yes.
like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. In fact, Sri Lanka, for the Sri Lankans now, they have their own center, Buddha Dharma Center.
Yes.
They call it the Sri Lankan Buddha Cultural Center. And as I understand, they have more than 200 adherents, you see, which is a very happy figure.
Yes.
And there's a resident monk. And besides, there are a couple of centers run by Thai monks and one by Burmese monk. So there are several centers which follow the Theravada tradition.
Yes.
And all the
Is there any increase of
there seems to be increase. I will come to that. The devotees expect.
Yes.
Then the other temples are all, of course, Chinese Mahayana. And in recent years, once again, there's a new phenomenon. There is an increasing number of temples belonging to or affiliated to the Tibetan tradition.
Yes.
People are very interested in Tibetan Buddhism in Hong Kong, especially for some reason or other. Among the movie stars and people like the singers, the entertainment.
Is there a considerable amount of Tibetan population?
No, hardly.
Okay.
Hardly. There may be a couple of Tibetans there,
Okay.
but basically they are not residents of Hong Kong.
Okay.
But it's because of some of the attractive features of Tibetan Buddhism
Yeah.
that in recent years is becoming more and more popular. So there's a new phenomenon, and then there's a revival among the Chinese followers of the Pure Land Buddhism. Pure Land Buddhism, for quite some time in modern history, I'm talking about, used to be understood or misunderstood as a tradition of superstition, and very few young people would believe that Pure Lands actually exist.
Yes.
Called Sukavatis and by other names, and Amitabha, and all you need to do is to have faith in Amitabha and you'll be delivered there, and this kind of message usually don't appeal, at least it didn't appeal to the young intellectuals.
Kind of esoteric.
And especially those who have turned away from Christianity. They don't want to just get into yet another religion that reminds them of, kind of the promise of heavenly world,
yes.
Similar to the Sukhavati and other Pure Lands.
Yes.
But in recent years, it's very interesting to notice that many intellectuals, and including those in Hong Kong, begin to appreciate this form of Buddhism. And for example, not only among the young ones, there is one very well-known scholar, not so much a scholar of Buddhist study, but he was the Vice Chancellor of the Hong Kong University of Technology for many years, something like more than 20 years. Very well-known figure, outstanding scholar, scientist, and he has turned to Pure Land Buddhism. He's now actually personally preaching Pure Land Buddhism regularly. He gives lectures every week on Pure Land Buddhism, and he writes columns on Pure Land Buddhism, and he himself, practices it in person, and that is inspiring. I'm not a follower of Pure Land Buddhism, but I can see that, however, effort of such scholar, influential scholars, and kind of doing it.
It's a kind of emerging interest.
It's not an interest in the sense of intellectual interest or philosophy interest, but in a religious sense, you might say. That is always inspiring for me. So we have this phenomena now in recent time, in addition to the general tradition of Chinese Buddhism. But as I said, also at the same time, the appeal of Theravada Buddhism, or Pali Buddhism, seems to be on the increase also. And that is mainly thanks to the emphasis in recent years on Vipassana meditation.
Yes.
One. Secondly, on the practical aspect of Buddhism. That is to say, Buddhism as a way of life that can be practiced by everybody. And this kind of emphasis certainly to be found in the Pali Buddhism. And this kind of emphasis seems to catch on.
But several years ago, you were a renowned lecturer, professor rather, in the Center of Buddhist Studies in Hong Kong, in the University of Hong Kong. Then now you have started your own institute, Buddha Dharma Center of Hong Kong. So how do you describe this kind of transformation, and what are you going to do in the institution?
What transformation?
What is the kind of ambition that you
have? In a way, there is no transformation, only that, I have been always a religious kind of person, so there's no change in me. So that's my nature. Even though as a scholar, as a professor, I feel that first and foremost I'm a Buddhist.
That's right.
I'm certainly a very imperfect Buddhist, and with my own human weaknesses, but I'm serious, very serious about the Dhamma. So for me, there is no question of retirement. So as a professor in the University of Hong Kong, I try to inspire the students in their commitment, not just philosophical interest, not just academic interest, but in their emotional, religious commitment to Buddhism. And I talk very much about, for example, meditation, and I show by my own example. I never stop, and students know it. Even as a teacher, when I was living in the university quarters, I maintain my daily meditation, and I don't shy away from my emotions and my commitment to the Dhamma.
To practice,
even in the classroom, and I don't show that I'm an objective, scientific thinker of Buddhism. I always honestly share with my students that I at my heart I am a Buddhist, and that's I find my ultimate meaning in Buddhism. So in those ways, there is no change. There never
Yes.
been any transformation.
Transformation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But of course, in terms of the modes of my operation as a teacher, also in respect of my way of spreading the Dhamma, of my dedication to the Dhamma. Of course, there are changes in a positive sense. Because, as you can understand, in university there are a lot of restrictions.
Yes, right.
You can't really preach in the classroom. Though I talk much about meditation, you can't use those occasions to teach them. Ask them to sit down and ring the bell and ask them to meditate with you. I can do all this now, you see, and freely. And with my center, I emphasize exactly what I want to emphasize. What I believe are important values of Buddhism.
That's right.
And in Hong Kong University, of course, there definitely are restrictions in various senses. Though there has never been any suppression, and so on the Buddhists or on other beliefs or other religions. As an academic institution, there are necessarily some restrictions, quite a lot of restrictions actually. So now, I have my center, and I can tell them, well, this is what you really must do in your life as a practicing Buddhist. I can say openly, and I can, if I feel like it, I can ask them to just sit down and meditate with me. I can do that kind of thing. In the classroom, I teach. When I teach the suttas, I link up the suttas, the teaching of the Buddha, with life. And with my own experiences, with my own ups and downs as an ordinary Puthajjana. And my students seem to be very inspired. And they know that they are not just learning the text or the language from me. Even though I'm reading Pali Sutta, for instance, the more important thing is to bring out the spiritual message.
Yes.
You see, in the wordings, in the Pali text, and relate them to our life, and show them how I find meaning and how I'm sure of what I'm doing as a Buddhist. So that kind of thing, certainly, these are very important changes in a positive way, as I said, things that I can do now. You see,
yes,
in a very natural way, even in the classroom, which I couldn't do.
Yes,
in the
University of Hong Kong.
Yeah, and also, as you know, I founded the Buddha Dhamma Center of Hong Kong. So let me say a few words.
Yes.
Why I call it the Buddha Dhamma Center.
Buddha Dhamma Center, yes.
Now, towards the end of my teaching period, my career at the University of Hong Kong, some of my very close students knew that I like to do something. I like to dedicate the rest of my life to the cause of Buddhism, and asked me how they can help me.
Yes.
And I told them, it would be good if I can form a center and propagate Buddhism exactly in the way that I would like to. You see.
Yes.
And then immediately in their mind, and they suggest to me, sir, why don't you start Institute for Advanced Study of Buddhism?
Yes.
Something like that, you see. So I rejected all this. No. I don't want the name. I don't want to start yet another Institute of Buddhist Studies.
Yes.
I want to emphasize the Buddha teaching as the Dhamma, and not as even Buddhism.
Yes.
Less still, Buddhist Studies Institute.
Yes.
You see. So I decided to call it Buddha Dharma Center. Of course, I use the word Dharma instead of Dhamma purely for reason of inclusiveness, because it's a generic Indian term, and in that sense, it can include Pali.
Yes.
As a general Indian tradition, you see.
Yes.
So, and then at the same time, it reflects my desire to present a form of non-sectarian Buddhism. So I decided to call it the Buddha Dharma Center Hong Kong. And then some of my well-wishers and colleagues said, well, yeah, that's good, we support you happily. But the name doesn't seem enough. What you have done, your Buddha Dharma Center, no. I call it the Buddhist college or something like that. And I refused all their kind suggestions. So I have my Buddha Dharma Center, and the emphasis is clear. It's on Buddha Dharma.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Bhante, now this is, as you mentioned, this is not just an institution to teach Buddhism, but a place where you can practice Buddhism. So here you have what we find in Hong Kong is mainly a non-Theravada population, and there is some population from South Asia, so and so forth. So how do you sort of compromise your activities in the center for these different groups?
For me, I think it's important that I have a very clear indication of what I believe the Buddha's teachings to be, you see. So I don't compromise in that sense. Just, in other words, just because a market is in a certain way, I don't necessarily go along with the market. I'm, in that sense, not market orientated. I don't look at the market and then try to create a product that suits the market. So in that sense, I don't compromise. In fact, perhaps I'm a little bit extreme. Perhaps I shouldn't be. What I want to do is, first I must be sure myself what the Buddha Dhamma is, right? And then if there isn't a market inverted commerce as such for the true Dhamma, let me create it. It's now time for us to create it. And in any culture, now this is in the culture of Hong Kong, a strongly Theravada Chinese Buddhist culture.
Theravada Chinese Buddhist.
Mahayana.
Mahayana, yes.
Mahayana Chinese Buddhist culture. I don't compromise with them. However, I sincerely believe that the Buddha's teaching is trans-sectarian.
Trans-sectarian.
Yeah. So I have never wanted to propagate so-called, I'm not capable of, put it this way, propagate a so-called pure form of Theravada Buddhism. In that sense, I'm not a very good Theravadian. I want to learn more and more about what really the Buddha teaching are, you see. And what I can, every day I'm trying to learn something from the Buddha. From his life, from the example, from the words, and then my contemplation and reflection on the words I read in the suttas. So I don't want any particular form of Vada, whether it's Theravada or any Vada. I hope to share with the Hong Kong people, and perhaps through them, the community of Buddhists at large in the world, to share with them my vision, my understanding, my vision of the Saddhamma, if you like, the true teaching of the Buddha. What I'm learning, I'm still discovering every day. And that to me, one of the major points is that it's certainly not a sectarian teaching. The Buddha never had Theravada, Mahayana, Hinayana, any yana in his mind, you see. And he taught the Dhamma, and Dhamma means the truth.
That's right.
You see. And so therefore what he teaches is also called the Dhamma because it accords with truth. And truth transcends time, transcends place, transcends traditions. There's one thing I learned from the Buddha. So I don't stick to any particular
tradition
as such. However, that said, let me word it very carefully. That said, I basically emphasize Theravada Buddhism as well. That is because whatever you say, the true words of the Buddha are to be found in the Pali Suttas. I don't believe that the Buddha actually spoke Pali as such. Nor do I believe that the suttas word by word, represents the actual recording of the Buddha's teaching. But I strongly believe, I'm completely convinced that the real message of the Buddha himself, the historical Sakyamuni Buddha, is to be found in the Pali canon. And also, of course, in the translation in the Chinese Agama text. So, although I hope to present a non-sectarian form of Buddhism in Hong Kong, but I at the same time very much want to underscore the importance of Theravada Buddhism, Pali Buddhism.
But
to me, these two are not contradictions.
Yeah. You are a scholar, so to go a bit away from our discussion, you mentioned about this pure form of Buddhism. So how do you describe this pure form of Buddhism?
No, I didn't quite say the pure form in that sense that nobody really knows actually what exactly 100% the Buddha said or has not said, which have all come to be included in the Pali Suttas. But the probability, what I'm saying is that the true, I'm not saying pure, the true teaching of the Buddha are preserved in that tradition, precisely for the reason of the Pali tradition. For the reason that that tradition has been a conservative one. Conservatism has its positive and negative aspects. I don't need to elaborate too much on this. But orthodoxy, conservatism certainly are important in respect of the preservation of the true teaching.
That's right.
Pure teaching, I don't know. As I say, even Pali, I don't believe that Pali is really the spoken dialect of the Buddha. You see? So, no, I didn't imagine that I'm capable of presenting pure Buddhism, but I want to find out the true teaching of the Buddha. As I say, I'm myself discovering every day. And when I read the suttas again and again, when I read as a student, and now myself as a teacher, as a professor, and then not only that, having gone into other traditions of Buddhism, as you know, in Hong Kong, actually, I didn't even have a chance to teach Theravada Buddhism at all.
Really?
Yeah, because I had been occupied or preoccupied with other subjects. So actually, I taught Mahayana Buddhism. That was one of my subjects.
Including Saraswati?
No, including. Mahayana Buddhism is one of the major courses in the MA program. It's a compulsory subject, and I taught it for many years. And in fact, I was thinking.
But you are very much more famous for your works on Saraswati.
Yeah, that was then I had to teach Sanskrit.
Yes.
And Buddhist Sanskrit, and those texts are Mahayana texts, and especially the Prajna Paramita texts. So nothing to do with Pali Buddhism or Theravada Buddhism. And as you say, Saraswati Abhidharma, and again, it is not quite Pali Abhidharma, although there's a lot of similarities, they're quite close, but there are definite differences, and it belongs to a definitely different tradition, so-called northern tradition. Texts are mostly preserved in Sanskrit instead of Pali. And then also I use a huge amount of material from classical Chinese. You see, all these are not Pali. Also another, I think you know, that another course I taught regularly, even now I'm still teaching, is Yogacara Buddhism, which also is Mahayana.
Yes. One of the Mahayana traditions.
One of the major Mahayana traditions. So, taken as a whole, you can see that I actually, properly speaking, I never taught Theravada Buddhism in Hong Kong. I didn't have a chance to. And there were great scholars doing this, Prof. and others, and now Professor Somaratna and Professor Endo, they are teaching those subjects. I'm not needed for that. But at my center, for two reasons, I'm teaching Pali Buddhism and Pali texts. One is, of course, there aren't that many other people who are teaching these subjects at my center.
Yeah.
Even though I can always take people from say the Postgraduate Institute of Buddhist Studies and so on to do that. But the other more important reason is that I feel that as I teach the suttas and Theravada form of Buddhism or Buddhism as presented in the Pali suttas, I find myself tremendous inspiration. I feel that I only now that I have a chance to enter into the real stream of my existence. You see, so in that sense, it's a personal thing. You know, it's a personal sense of satisfaction, personal sense of meaning. You know, all these things are important for me. To decide to teach the Pali Suttas and Theravada Buddhism as I do now.
Bhante, when you have a culture around you and as you have an institution which does not focus purely a kind of academic teaching, then there is a sort of need to address to the religious need of the people. So, what is your kind of attitude and approach to these cultural elements?
You know, I was trying to understand the presumptions on the basis of which you are asking such questions. Anyway, let me highlight a few terms. First of all, I have never wanted to form an institution as such.
Yes.
So let me hope that the little center that I have formed is not considered as institution the proper sense. I shall come back to this point later, perhaps. Secondly, as I said, I'm not market orientated. I don't, in my center, I emphasize ritual very much.
Yes.
Religious practices very much. Besides intellectual studies,
yes.
Besides classroom studies. Everybody knows that. Every Sunday, I personally lead puja and meditation and give a spiritual sermon. Yeah, those are important things for me. And that I do every Sunday. Even if it falls on Chinese New Year or whatever, it makes no difference to me, unless I'm sick or I'm away from Hong Kong. Otherwise, everybody knows that when they go to our little center, every Sunday from 10 to 1, we have this program that emphasizes on practice, on devotion, on rituals. Yeah. Now, what I want to say is that I'm doing this not because of the market, not because I am having to deal with the masses and they have a need for ritual, therefore I do rituals, right? It is not that. Actually, it's rather the other way around. I wish that more people would join and understand the importance of ritual. As I said, perhaps I'm not a very pure and not very good Theravadan, because there are many quarters of the Theravada community which try to downplay the importance of ritual. But I emphasize the importance of it.
Yeah.
I see ritual as being very important for the practicing Buddhist. So why? Okay, firstly, shall I go into it?
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
A lot of things I want to say, and I've given a few public lectures on this. You see? Well, first thing I want to point out is that there is an important misconception on the Buddha's teaching regarding rituals. You know, people are fond of quoting the Buddha as saying, as highlighting Silapatta Paramahasa as one of the Sangyojanas, one of the fetters, is it? That bind us to samsaric existence. Yeah. So therefore, according to the understanding of these people, we must not be so-called attached to rituals, and otherwise we'll be hindered. You see, and that's a wrong practice of the Buddhist, right? Now, and the usual translation in English I'm sure you have seen by different people, is attachment to rites and rituals. Right? Attachment to rites and rituals, right? As the Sanghajana. But I do not agree to such a translation. I think it's quite bad. It's misleading. Because there's no evidence, at least in that particular pariyaya, that particular doctrine is concerned, you see, there's no evidence that Buddha is rejecting rituals in the positive, healthy, psychological sense. What he is rejecting, what he's pointing out as obstacle, has to do with the word sila and bhatta. Sila, translated as right, is quite wrong also. Sila refers to those practices, those religious practices, in fact irrational religious practices at his time, such as following the way of the cow and keeping your hair long for a long time, fasting for in
different kinds of penance and
that kind of penances and things like that. You see, extreme self-modification.
And elaborated rituals.
So it's not ritual in that sense, not the ritual in the sense I'm going to explain. And this bhatta is vrata in Sanskrit. Vrata means vows. You see, the vow that people make, like you vow to follow the way of the cow, or follow the way of the dogs or whatever. Thinking that or mistaking that this constitutes the way of vimukha, or liberation. Now, those are the irrational religious practices, irrational religious observances that obstruct us, you see, from liberation. And Buddhas are the Buddha is pointing out those practices, those irrational practices, right, as obstacles, which is quite correct. Obviously, there are obstacles. So in other words, we are told not to be attached to irrational observances, religious observances. Not to totally deny the value of ritual as such. Well, it's hard to find, of course, a sutta which directly emphasizes the importance of ritual, you see. But then when you consider that the Buddha emphasizes saddha, for instance, emphasizes feeling and emotion as well. Look at the whole teaching of the five skandha. A human being is constituted of the five khandhas or skandhas, and this includes far more than just the brain, the intellect. You see, it has emotions, it has vedana, it has sanjya, it has samskara, you see, which has to do with your volition, has to do with the karmic tendencies, and so on.
Thereby probably with your personality.
All this come from from the conditioning in the past. So, you see, the Buddha emphasizes the five skandhas, and that the five skandhas have to be transformed in a spiritual way, you see, have to be purged in a spiritual way. So, in other words, in the Buddha's teaching, much attention must be paid to this aspect of feeling, vedana, sanjaya. Today this tradition seems to not talk much about it, to say the least. These aspects, talking too much about logic and reasonings, rationality, and so on. Of course, rationality is important, logical thinking is important, intelligence has to be made use of, and blind faith has to be, removed, and so on. True. But at the same time, a human being is much more than just all these things. All the intellectual aspect, the rational aspect. You have the feelings to deal with. You have the emotion to deal with. Actually, in our experience, in everybody's experience, I believe, it's always emotions that are stronger than reason. Whenever there is a clash between reason and emotion, it looks like it's always emotion that actually wins.
Bhante, in recent times we are talking about emotional intelligence.
Yeah. That shows also
Yeah.
that you can't divorce.
Yeah.
You see, so-called intelligence from emotion.
Emotions.
The emotional intelligence is very, very important aspect now. But at least we must understand that in the Buddha teaching, there are important places
Yeah.
for feeling emotions.
Feeling emotions.
Today, what I'm saying is that there are not, to say the least, there are insufficient handling, insufficient attention on the refining, sublimation of our feelings and emotions, of transforming our feeling emotions, which can be very, very powerful. A human being always experiences a clash between reason and emotion, all the time. And sometimes we know this clash, sometimes we don't know,
Yes.
but we experience them. If not for that kind of clash, would have become Buddha. You see, so it is only the Buddha himself who is called Vicharana Sampanna,
Yes.
who is fully accomplished with both Vicharana and Charana. So that reason, you can say reason and emotion, both fully integrated. But for all of us, we fall short of that.
Yeah.
To varying degrees, you see. So the Buddhist path must be a path that deals with the totality of man, not just the brain, not just intellectual thinking.
Yes.
That's why in my little center, I emphasize this. Besides intellectual study also you cannot deny. It must be given a due place, because we have the brain, we have the desire of knowledge, of understanding. We have doubts, and we have to clear our doubts. And as a modern person in a modern society, we cannot deny our need for rational thinking. You see, so we have to deal with this. We have to understand the sutras intellectually also, Buddha's teaching intellectually also. But at the same time, we mustn't forget that we have some, actually, in a sense, at least, more important aspects of our being. You see, to handle, to pay attention to transform, and these are our emotions and feelings. That's where rituals come in.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, let me then come to the important ritual from the psychological point of view. Now, let me here quote Erich Fromm, an important modern thinker,
Yes.
professor of psychotherapy. He's a very interesting person. He belongs to the so-called humanistic school of psychology, and he's one of them. And Abraham Maslow and others are also Rogers and so on. Many of the ideas, many of the approaches are very similar to Buddhist ones, precisely because Buddhism is humanistic in outlook at its deepest levels. So, Fromm is one of those, in fact, one of the pioneers who pointed out the importance of emotion and importance of religion. Unlike Freud, he understands Buddhism positively, but not perhaps in an extreme way as Jung, you see.
Carl Jung.
Yeah, Carl Jung, who was a disciple of one of the best disciple of Freud.
Sigmund
So
Freud.
in a sense, he revolted against his own guru.
Yes.
But when you come to Fromm, his approach is quite a balanced one, and in a sense rather Buddhistic. He recognizes, first of all, the importance of religion, but he distinguishes religion into two types: the rational religion and irrational religion, and the theistic one and the non-theistic ones. And basically, he praises Buddhism as a religion that exemplifies, as a humanistic religion that exemplifies what he calls a rational religion.
Rational religion.
Yeah, that is non-authoritarian.
Yes.
Now, when he comes to ritual also, he makes the same kind of twofold distinction, right? So for him, there are rituals which are irrational, and rituals which are rational. Rituals that are psychologically unhealthy, that become a hindrance and sanyojanas, should come under the irrational type of rituals.
Yes.
Right? You don't know what you're doing, and you in fact you are misinformed. And your rituals, the rituals are based on wrong metaphysical views, and commitment, and so on, based on fear or based on ignorance, delusions. But Fromm says that there is a thing called rational ritual, and here is his definition. If I hope I can remember just off my hand. He says, a rational ritual is a shared action expressive of a common striving rooted in common values.
In his verbatim.
That is, I think, word by word,
Okay.
I have quoted him. A shared action. First of all, ritual is an action. It's something you do. Understand?
Yeah.
You must do it.
Do it.
And you do it for a certain purpose. And with awareness, with understanding. That's what a rational ritual is.
Yeah.
That is what makes it rational. Yeah. You don't do it blindly. You don't do it out of fear.
Fear, yes.
Driven by unconscious fear.
Blind faith.
And so on, you see. So it's not that. So it's an action that you must do. In other words, for instance, a simple example would be that you can't just invite the Hamdru to do just spirit for you and just get the blessing in a passive way.
Yeah.
You should invite the Hamdru, not to say that you should not actually emphasize it. But at the same time, you must participate in it. Right? Yes. Your actions are very important.
Your positive participation.
You must be into it.
Yeah.
You don't just sit quietly and let the Hamdru do all the chanting and then at the end just give you the
tying the sacred thread.
The sacred thread or whatever. No, not that. So Chinese unfortunately also behind the Buddhism developed in this negative way in ritual in many circles, and you just invite the Chinese monks or nuns and go and like Chinese like business contract, I pay you so much money, you chant one sutta, so much money you chant 3 sutta, so much money for 1 day, so much for 3 days. It's a business thing, and you don't have to do anything. The monks and the nuns will do for you. Now these are definitely sanyojanas. These are definitely irrational, right? So it's not that. So Fromm says a rational ritual, first of all, is a shared action. It's an action, first of all, something to do. You must do, and then it's a shared action. You must do it together with others.
Yeah.
You see, and it brings out a collective force of inspiration. That's extremely important. That force of inspiration is transforming. It transforms you even without you knowing sometimes. So you can only experience that if when you actually take part in that. So you can't be passive. You see? So it's a shared action, expressive of a common striving. So a ritual is then an expression. As an expression. That word is also pregnant with meaning, it's important. In other words, it externalizes your inner yearning, spiritual yearning.
Yeah.
We all have spiritual yearnings, When we see a Buddha rupa, we somehow feel calmer and happy.
Yeah.
And our whole tradition comes to our mind.
Yeah.
We don't have to listen to a bana.
Yeah.
You see? So that's why we need religion, that's why we go to the Bangsara, we go to the temple, and that's why we want to be near the monk. All these things are because these are expression of something inside us.
Yeah.
The holy dimension, the sacred dimension, we feel that it's in humanity, and you feel, for instance, that the monks or the temple representing them, even the robe, the very sight of the robe can make you feel happy. That's because it reflects your own endowment within you of this yearning. So ritual is important means to help you externalize this unconscious religious yearning, which everybody has. If they are not externalized, they become unconscious. To the extent that they remain unconscious, to the extent they influence you, sometimes in an unhealthy way. For instance, blind faith and all these phenomena can result, you see. So you must be aware of them properly. You must have consciousness of them. Yes. So your unconscious feelings, religious feelings, spiritual yearnings must be brought out, must be externalized. What can help you to do it? Ritual.
Yeah.
It's a very effective, powerful way. You see?
Yes.
These are not things that you can do by listening to a lecture, a bana, or unless it's a very inspiring bana.
Yeah.
Huh?
An objective learning.
or classroom learning. You can't do that. However much your brain can understand, it looks like one thing is your brain, another thing is your heart. Always there's a clash between the brain and the heart. You understand? So you must learn to kind of bring out from your heart, things that are hidden in you, so that your brain can meet with your heart. Then only when you are integrated like that, when your consciousness and the unconscious contents within you are integrated, then only you can grow to higher levels. That's what spiritual growth is. So all these things can take place in what is called a rational ritual. So therefore, everyone says it is a shared action expressive of inner yearnings, inner striving, and these strivings are rooted in common values. So Buddhism has its own common value. When you feel like you come with all the other Buddhists doing the same ritual, you feel so powerful, your feeling for enlightenment, your feeling of holiness as manifested in the phenomena of the Buddha. You feel that in everybody else together doing it with you. So through the collective force, through the resonance, you are uplifted. All these things can take place only when you are in a ritual. Yeah. Not only in a ritual, at least in ritual in one important way, one effective way. Look at Sri Lanka. It's very much a Theravada country, right? And you will agree with me that everywhere you go to Sri Lanka, isn't there ritual? Day and night they are. You can't deny that. Why is that? Nothing wrong for me. I think that it's wonderful when I see that they have all these rituals, provided, of course, they don't degenerate into irrational observances. That's the important thing. So the defects are not with the rituals themselves as such. It's how we make use of the rituals. Yeah, and how we understand rituals. So therefore, in brief, rituals for me. Rituals are extremely important because they are very powerful tools to bring out, to refine our emotions. Vedana, Sanya, Samskara, all this, you see. And in a way that intellectual understanding of philosophical ideas cannot do.
Cannot do that.
Yeah.
Bhante, thank you very much for accepting the invitation for this discussion, and also coming to this discussion and elaborating on the nature of Buddhism in Hong Kong, the emerging elements as well as the activities going on in the Buddha Dharma Center, run by you, directed by you. Thank you very much, Bhante.